let's turn up the juice and see what shakes loose. It's Rebooty and the Beast, a podcast in 2 parts. I'm Ed Burke, and I messed up the little quote.
What was it supposed to be?
I think I just stumbled.
Oh my gosh. And I'm Matt Molinaro, and this is a Rebooty and the Beast podcast in 2 parts, and as Ann just said, I know I'm stumbling through it, and in the first episode of our little blocks of episodes, we review an original piece of media, which is this, and next week and the subsequent week, bonus, we'll be discussing the reboots.
That's right.
We should mention, maybe right off the bat, that maybe not next week. We'll be discussing a reboot.
That's right. So I'm going to be traveling next week, and so we're going to have 1 week off in between this episode and the following episode. But then we'll be back pretty soon afterwards.
The good news is it'll give everyone a chance to go see the other movie because it's actually still in theaters right now as we're recording. So maybe it'll give everyone a chance to go see the sequel.
That's right. Yeah, so do you want to tell the folks what we're reviewing today in case they didn't listen last week and didn't look at the episode title?
All right, here we go. This week we are discussing 1988's Beetlejuice. I only said it once. We're okay.
We're okay. There seems to be an unspoken rule in the movie of how much time can pass between or who can say it each time before it becomes an issue.
Yeah, I think... The person in the movie, it seems like the person has to say it 3 times within a short period of time, like in the same conversation or something like that.
Yeah.
There is a musical version of Beetlejuice, which Davey and I got to go see like on Broadway when it was out.
I never knew that.
It's so effing good. It was so good.
Huh. Who knew?
It's all the music in it is really fun and has a really like very great style to it. The cast recording is great, and there's a lot. It's very tongue-in-cheek the way it discusses like the rules of like how things go and stuff like that. In the musical version, the rule is the name has to be spoken 3 times in succession, unbroken, like without anything in between it.
Okay,
that's like the rule in the musical, but as the musical says, it's quite a deviation from the source material.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I don't know. My first note about this movie is I remember very little about it. Mm-hmm. I think I probably saw it once, maybe twice as a child. But my memory is, I was telling Miles watched it with me. I was telling him as we were watching it that I think most of my Beetlejuice memories comes from the cartoon, which we are planning to do for the little 3rd trifecta Beetlejuice episode, because that was... I remember watching that all the time.
I don't know how many episodes there are, but I would imagine I've seen all of them multiple times because I watched it like every day after school.
There was 4 seasons and 96 episodes because I made Miles look it up because I was curious.
Yeah, I probably watched all of them multiple times.
Probably. Which I don't know if you experienced any surprise while watching this movie, but I wouldn't have looked at this and gone, this would make a perfect child's cartoon.
I mean, looking back, it's kind of crazy that it was marketed probably as a family film.
Yes.
But I seen this movie so many times.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Oh my gosh. I love, spoiler alert, I love this movie. I've always liked this movie growing up. I can't believe it came out in 1988. I would have put it in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I
mean, it was pretty close to the 90s.
Yeah, but I just loved it. And I watched it many, many, many times since. I think I try to watch it every, like, spooky season as like this and Hocus Pocus are, like, 2 ones I always try to watch, even if we watch nothing else.
Now, remind me not to change trajectories and talk about a movie that we're not talking about today. Did you ever see the Hocus Pocus reboot?
I did. That'll definitely have to be something we do because I have lots of thoughts.
Okay. Should that be what we do after Beetlejuice?
That might be fun. I mean, we are in spooky season, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's September, but sure, we'll call it spooky season.
Listen, when fall hits and the leaves start coming off the trees, which they very much are here in the Northeast. It's fall. It's spooky season.
Well,
it's time.
in Southern California, it's been low 90s for the last few weeks, so it is definitely not spooky season down here.
Let me tell you, the major chains have released their pumpkin beverages. Need I say more?
Ugh. Oh, God. I just get, yeah. The only thing that gets me through this time of year is that it's also gray sweatpants season.
Oh, yes. Amen. Speaking of the pants, there were some very nice fitting pants in this movie.
There sure were. I actually have a note about that. Okay, let's get into it before we go any further.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so this was made in 98.
88.
And it's 88, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got quite a cast.
Yeah, we have Michael Keaton, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, my queen.
I love her.
I've always loved her. Jeffrey Jones is Charles Dietz. What else is he in? Because I definitely recognize him from other stuff.
Okay, I'm pretty sure was the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay.
But it's funny because he's such a recognizable face to me, but I really couldn't place him in much else.
Yeah, I mean, when I look him up, I see him. Yes, you're right. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I didn't watch Deadwood, but I know that was like very popular. Yeah, I mean, I've seen The Devil's Advocate, but I can't remember a thing about it.
Oh yeah, same.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's great. He was great.
Yeah, he
and
was
then,
great.
Of course, Catherine O'Hara. I mean, Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Come on.
Was this Winona Ryder's kind of like first big movie?
Was this before Edward Scissorhands?
Oh, I think it has to be, right?
What about Heathers?
I think it's for sure before Heathers and...
Okay, yeah. It's 1 year before Heathers, 2 years before Edward Scissorhands. This looks like, it says according to her Wikipedia page that this is when she rose to prominence, but she also was debuted, oh my god, in that movie Lucas from 1986.
I never saw that.
It's a rom-com drama. Isn't this about like the kid that gets like beat up at school or whatever? Yeah, it's like a kid bullied at school. It does not matter. Yeah, I guess this was her big break.
Yeah.
I bet this like led to the types of movies she did for quite a while because of this character.
I will say I don't think her acting is spectacular in this movie.
I feel like you're not a big Winona Ryder stan in general.
Well, okay. I mean, in Stranger Things, all she did was like grab onto light bulbs and look astonished.
There it
so
is. There it is.
So I mean, she was fine in this. The whole thing about Beetlejuice is this movie is camp, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's entirely camp, and so it's not like any of the actors or characters were realistic in any sort of real way, and so it all worked regardless of her acting or not.
Yeah, I would say that Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin are realistic.
I don't know about that. But
I mean, they're in an unrealistic situation, but I would say they're realistic people.
They're the most grounded characters. I'll give you that.
All right, yeah. Okay. Let's. Do you want to hear the little summary from IMDb?
I do, yes.
All right. It says, the spirits of a deceased couple are harassed by an unbearable family that has moved into their home and hire a malicious spirit to drive them out.
I love the kind of reversal of it's the living that are haunting the dead in this movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun change of pace. I feel like I don't actually know much about Tim Burton generally, but I feel like most of his movies are like his brain is just so clearly does not operate in the way that other people's brains work.
No, it's very... All of his stuff is, dark in a certain way, dark in a whimsical sort of way, but kind of teeters sometimes towards the darker, like pushes the boundaries while still saying like pretty much family friendly, kind of like nuanced in its like humor, dry, lots of stripes. He's big on stripes.
Big on stripes, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like a lot of Tim Burton's work, but a lot of it is, I think, repetitive.
Oh, do you think so?
I think the more recent stuff. Like, have you seen I'm sure we'll cover them because they're reboots, but the Alice in Wonderland reboots, for instance, that he's done?
Oh God, is that the one that Johnny Depp is in?
Yes.
He freaked me out too much. Johnny Depp was such a creep in that sneak previews of the movie that I just couldn't stand to stomach the idea of watching them.
That's because you didn't get a glimpse of the Oompa Loompas.
Wait,
that's another discussion
wait.
entirely.
I'm sorry. I'm actually thinking of, wasn't he?
Oh, I'm thinking of Willy Wonka. He was in both, though.
Yes.
He was in both. Both
Okay.
reboots, both
I'm
Tim
thinking...
Burton, both kind of off the wall. And yeah, I'm saying Oompa Loompas, so that's Willy Wonka too. But
did you see the I don't even know what it was at. Maybe it was like Grammys or Tonys or something. Eddie Redmayne doing the cabaret performer, the cabaret MC. That's what Johnny Depp's characterization feels like in the Willy Wonka reboot, and so it just freaked me out too much.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I feel like we should
Johnny
get
Depp
into the movie.
Not featured at all.
Yes.
Thankfully at this point. But for me, the opening sequence of Beetlejuice is always iconic. I was looking forward to it. I was like, get me on that bird's eye view of that beautiful model of the town in the attic.
Was the whole thing the model, or was it real footage that eventually transitioned into the model? I think it's
interspliced throughout, because you could tell when the blades of grass versus like rubbery, But overall, I just love it so much.
It's great. And I think that's the same music that they use in the cartoon.
Oh, it is 100%. Yeah, the cartoon is so true to the movie, like in all of that kind of stuff. That's why it's so good.
So Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are kind of like two little homebodies who are staycationing. They are the original staycationers.
Big time.
Because they're going to continue to remodel their house, which is this huge sort of, I don't even know how to describe the style. Yeah, it is but it's like at the time a very cheerfully ominous house on a hill.
It's very like picturesque, clouds in the sky, beautiful. But it's also just out of reach enough of the town where it's a little bit kind of spooky, kind of unsettling, but beautiful.
Unusual and unsettling. I would say that's something that Tim Burton definitely likes to do, is unsettling things.
Yeah, think about like the Black Hole Sun music video, but like toned down quite a lot. Like the very beginning of it.
I was really the Black Hole. Take me back to junior high. Black Hole Sun was like legitimately traumatized me. I was so afraid of the sun blowing up, and that music video did not help. Anyway,
I would imagine.
So they're loving their house. They're like gonna get some supplies to continue their like little remodeling or whatever. My main notes during this section are Alec Baldwin has some cakes on him.
Oh my, okay, yes, because Gina Davis is wearing a house dress like straight out of the Golden Girls, and I'm obsessed with it.
I wouldn't even say Golden Girls. I would say Sister Wives.
Oh, yes. I would say that's it. With the hair that I'm obsessed with, the big hairsprayed curly hair that all my aunts had. And Alec Baldwin is wearing these khakis that are just so beautifully framing that ass.
That dad ass.
Oh my god!
I know
Me and Davey were like the whole time watching, like, oh my god, I am distracted.
I know he's like a terrible person, but my goodness, he was a very good-looking man.
Amen. I was like, wow. I wonder if little Matt was like grinning to himself watching this movie. Yes, they're a great. They're such an attractive couple, the Maitlands.
Yes.
I totally forgot about this character though, and I'm so sad I missed her. Their real estate agent. Yeah. Monster. So she wants to basically like get them out of the house to sell it already.
Yeah, which is weird because she sold them the house and also decorated the whole house herself.
Yeah, she's just Budinsky, as my family used to say.
Budinsky. So the kind of like inciting incident of the movie is they go into town to buy some home remodel supplies, and on their way back, they're driving over a bridge and they swerve to avoid a dog and crash into the river.
Yes, and that dog killed them.
That dog did kill them because he was balancing on that board and he jumped off, and then the car fell into the river.
Unreal. He was like, I bet that was like the meme of the little girl with the fire behind her.
Yes.
It was like that.
I would say too, I mean, I don't know much about like car accident physics, but it's not, that car didn't fall very far and that river didn't look super intense. It seems like they should have been able to escape that car.
I completely agree. It was a very, for all of the sort of like off the wall violent type things you'll see throughout the rest of the movie, the actual car accident is so mild.
Yes.
It's so mild. Just like when Meredith went to the snowbank on
oh my God.
Housewives of
Yes.
Salt Lake.
Speaking of which, that comes back next week. I'm very excited.
Dead.
Okay. So they come back to their house and they are kind of like soaking wet, and they're sort of like, things are weird. Like Gina Davis's fingertips light on fire, and she like is just kind of like, well, that's weird.
Did that give you Charmed vibes?
It did. It really did.
Same.
Because, yep, first episode of Charmed, fire tip fingers. And there's a handbook for the recently deceased in the house, which is just kind of funny that like they would get that handbook just delivered to them upon their death.
I love that. It kind of reminds me of Dead Like Me.
Oh yeah, I like that show.
Me too.
So they pretty quickly figure out that they're dead. And it's not like everything in this movie makes sense from a like rules of the universe standpoint by any means, but they try to like leave the house, and when they step outside too far, like they walk through any of the doors or go outside, it like transports them to a like sandy hellscape with sandworms in it. And the sandworms are very ingrained in my memory from the cartoon.
Oh, same. And from the movie. Like, they're so ingrained in me from both. Like, that claymation sandworm effect in that world, I could not wait to see what it looked like again. And it's so much. You're so right. The cartoon does it so well.
And I will say, obviously the special effects of this movie are very of their time, but the whimsical, the perfect word I think you used to describe the tone of this movie, it still works. Like it was charming to watch it and didn't feel like, oh God, I'm watching like the cheesiest special effects, because it was meant to be ridiculous.
Like, what was our first episode?
Was our first episode Beauty and the Beast?
No, Clash of the Titans.
Oh, Clash of the Titans, yes, of course.
Like, it really takes you back. Yeah, this feels really like does. I loved it. I loved the way it looked.
Like I'm so curious, because I know our next episode we're going to be watching Beetlejuice. I'm really curious to know how they do the special effects, because part of me almost wants them to still do claymation stuff.
I sincerely hope they do.
Yeah.
Especially for like, I hope they, I have a lot of hopes. I guess we'll talk about that at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're in the sandworm world. They eventually find themselves a way back to the door that's like floating in the air. Very Wheel of Time. Very the way out will come once.
But once, yeah.
But they get back to the door, and when they're back in their living room or their kitchen or whatever, and it's hours later now, even though it's just been a couple minutes for them. So that's fun.
Yeah.
And then they're in the attic, and I think this is the part when we first see Beetlejuice.
Yeah, they like, it kind of just randomly cuts to Beetlejuice, but we don't really see him, but he's like reading a newspaper, and he sees their obituary and thinks they kind of like look like a nice and stupid couple, he refers to them as.
Right.
So right. It seems like he's going to try to use them in some way or another, is kind of how they're setting it up at that point. But then their house gets sold, and in moves the Dietzes. And I just love Catherine O'Hara in anything and everything, but she is so good in this role. It's you can see why Eugene Levy wanted to cast her for Moira Rose based solely on this role, Yeah.
Yeah, I read that she was
very
almost
reminiscent.
not cast as Delia too, so I cannot even imagine her not being.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did it say who was like up for the role other than her?
It did. Let me see here. Catherine O'Hara. I have a little list because there was so much trivia for this movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of casting, it says that it came down to two people for Lydia as well. It was between Winona Ryder, who obviously got the part, and Alyssa Milano.
No way.
Yeah, could you imagine?
I actually kind of can. And I do think Alyssa Milano is a little bit of a better actor than Winona Ryder. I'm sorry.
What?
I do. I'm sorry.
You think? Okay, hold on. I'm going to take a breath. I like Alyssa Milano. I've got nothing against it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not Rose McGowan. I don't have the same things against Alyssa Milano as her. You think Alyssa Milano is a higher quality actress than a more skilled actress than Winona Ryder?
At this age, yes. Maybe not as an adult, but at this age, I would say yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, I did find out who it was. It was Angelica Houston was also thought to be Delia, but she was ill and could not commit to the filming.
Holy shit, that would have been good too, though.
Yeah, a totally different take, but I mean, who doesn't love Angelica Houston?
Yeah, seriously. Okay, anyway. So they move in, and pretty quickly we get the vibe that like Catherine O'Hara does not want to be here. She's like a big city lady who wants to tear down everything in the house and like remodel it, make it modern because she hates all the old wallpaper, hates the colors, hates everything.
Yes, it's
Lydia
very
is just like constantly dressed in funeral garb.
What is she dressed in?
In funeral garb.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes, over the top.
And then the dad it seems like the dad is the main reason why they moved out here. Like he wanted a like more quiet existence and is like happy with the little house on the hill.
Yeah, he seems to be an entrepreneur of some sort. He seems to want to like, but he wants to be out of whatever rat race he was in. So
yeah,
he's longing for the comforts of nature, but you could tell he still has this like desire to do more. Charles has dragged his new wife Delia. We never find out what happened to Lydia's mom, but Lydia clearly does not get along with not very much with her dad, but seriously not with her mom, with Delia.
Now let's talk about the third character the fourth character that comes with them, who is not a member of the family but seems to always be around, whose name is Otho, which is a hilarious name. But who is he? Their interior designer? Is he just like a clinger honor of their wealth? Like, what do you think he's supposed to be?
Otho to me is Delia is being played as one of those like early 90s, late 80s, new wave, hip and with it, but totally clueless characters who's into like spirituality and crystals and art and that kind of like flighty as the character I think they would put her as. And I think that character often had a like eccentric, queer coded best friend who was a designer or an artist of some type that was either like called this woman his muse or his like bestie or his whatever. I think he's basically like she looks at him as like a fan of hers, but also a like inspiration of hers. He's aspirational of the life that she still wants to have. Yeah, that like free artist kind of like life, but she's stuck in Connecticut. So he's gonna come and like save her from her future.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, he's the interior designer, but yeah, he clearly is got more going on.
Yeah, because he's a fan of her work, because we find all her sculptures being moved in, and
yes,
I love her sculptures. These are iconic from the movie too. I could not wait to see them.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin decide they don't want to live with the Dietz. They hate that they want to remodel the house. And so they decide to start trying to scare them off. Mm-hmm. And these like first scenes where she like rips her face off while she's like hanging in the closet and just the way like you see them gasp, but then you realize they're gasping at how tiny the closet is, not the fact that Gina Davis is hanging in there ripping her face off.
Oh my God, that was
like
hilarious.
Those moments are so good.
So good. I was dying.
Love it.
Oh my God. And they walk into one of the rooms and they have that whole decapitation scene.
Yes.
And Otho goes, deliver me from LL Bean.
Yes. Amazing. They can't get in the attic though, because Alec Baldwin somehow manages to lock the attic and keep them out. So they're unable to get in there yet. Mm-hmm. But we kind of get glimpses that Winona Ryder is one of the few people who can see spirits, because she catches like a glimpse of Gina and Alec in the attic window. And so eventually the realtor neighbor delivers them a skeleton key, which will open the door to the attic for them.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the Gina and Alex see an advertisement for Beetlejuice on the television. Okay, here's my most controversial opinion of this movie. I think Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice is kind of irritating. Like, I enjoy everything. He's my least favorite part of the movie.
Well,
have I greatly offended you?
I'm just surprised. I thought he was great.
I think he's good at it. I just find the character irritating.
Well, the character's not supposed to be like someone you want to invite to dinner and like hang out with. Like,
fair. That's fair.
He's a trickster demon.
Yeah, true. And he's advertising himself as a bioexorcist. So they are kind of like, oh, maybe he can help us get rid of the demon, or not the demons, the Dietzes from the house.
Yes, but they're like worried about it because he seems like he's very car salesman-y about the way he runs his whole thing. Then we also have this is when they we cut to the meal between Lydia, Delia, and Charles.
Yes.
Where they're enjoying life in their new home. Delia's fully redecorated. I think we fast forwarded because they went to Sandworm World again for some reason.
Yeah.
But we're in the future now. Delia's done a lot of redecoration, a couple weeks at least. And they're in this dark... the way she's redecorated this house...
It's like a cemetery.
It's like a bordello cemetery. It's so weird. I love it though. And did you notice that in the scene on Delia's head, what she's wearing as a headband is just two gloves tied together?
I was obsessed with that.
I was obsessed, and I read at trivia that throughout the movie, a lot of what she wears are pieces of other people's wardrobe from previous scenes, just repurposed in different ways.
Obsessed. I love that.
Couldn't even... apparently she wears like a pair of like a sweater as a pair of pants or at some point. I really got to go back and look.
Amazing.
But yeah, they're having this meal and Lydia is in a huge black veil.
Amazing. Incredible.
And this is what she says are iconic. My whole life is a dark room.
Yes.
Me as a teenager.
Yeah.
But this is when we get all the tension over, like, they're going to have a big construction crew come to the house and really gut it. Because basically, if Charles doesn't let Delia redo this house, she's going to, quote, go insane and take you all with me.
Yes. And meanwhile, I think this is when Alec and Gina go to the sort of underworld. Like, they draw a door and knock 3 times and end up in the underworld's, like, waiting room, which is just full of the most eccentric, cool-looking characters and people, and the shrunken head guy is so iconic to me.
Oh, yes. I love seeing all and you could tell everyone there is like, they very specifically made everyone look the way you could tell how they died from like the way they're like, I love it. And you have all the different, like, I could not wait for the waiting room.
Yeah,
I love them drawing the door with the chalk to get to the other side. I wanted to do that so bad growing up. I love the way it opens.
Very
out
charmed.
Of the brick wall. I was obsessed.
Yeah,
obsessed.
It's great.
But yeah, this waiting room moment is so great. And then they go and they they go and wait in the line for the waiting room, and it's like every waiting room you go to, the waiting from hell, basically. You never know when you're gonna get seen.
Okay, I think the next thing that happens is they meet their caseworker, Juno.
Yes, they're on their way to go meet their caseworker, Juno, and I just want to point one thing out.
Okay.
As they're walking through, well, actually 2 things. This is a piece of trivia I read. Did you notice in the waiting room scene, right when they're told, like, oh, you don't have your handbook with you and you don't have an appointment? Okay, Juno, we'll see you soon. Did you notice behind the girl who's waiting at the front desk, there's, like, people in the theater?
People in the theater?
So, like, if you look behind the girl who's sitting there at the front desk telling them to wait.
The receptionist, you mean?
Yeah, thank you. The receptionist, Miss Venezuela. She has people behind her, if you look. The set kind of breaks away a little bit behind her. And there are people sitting in movie theater seats facing us. that looked
Oh
like
my
they're
God,
dead.
I didn't even see that. Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I read that that's supposed to be like the undead audience watching the same movie that we're watching, but from their side.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
Right? Isn't that fun? And I think the people who are depicted are supposed to be actual like people that are dead. And I didn't really read too much into that, but I thought, what a clever little, because I remember seeing that when I watched the movie. And then when I read that piece of trivia, I was like, oh my God, that's so clever.
Yeah, that is really fun.
But
I
then
like that.
the other thing is when they're on the way to go meet the caseworker Juno, they pass a bunch of like, undead workers in this like, office skeletons and things
The
like
DMV,
that.
basically.
Yeah. But did you notice the girls that they passed, they all have like a kind of a glowing skin?
Yes.
Do you think that they died from like that radium? Do you think those
oh my gosh.
radium
the
girls
radium
or
girls? Yeah, I wonder if that was an inspiration for it.
Because that's what happened. Like they worked in a factory in an environment where they used it as like makeup or something, right?
Yeah, they would dust it on their skin and all kinds of stuff.
And I feel like I didn't see anything online about it, but I was like, that has to be them.
That's surprising. I mean, that's a very good connection to make, even if it's not necessarily what he intended. But I like that.
Right?
I like that version of events. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, then they go to meet their caseworker. They walk through that crazy zany hallway and meet Juno.
Yes. Who is kind of a like Ma from Golden Girls sort of vibe, I would say.
Yeah, like very salt of the earth. Been there, done that. Straight shooter, raspy kind of voice.
No nonsense. Yeah.
Smoking a cigarette and it's coming out of her mouth and also the hole in her neck.
Yes. Yeah. And she kind of like warns them. She's basically like, you have to get good at scaring them out if you want the Dietzes out of your house. And whatever you do, don't summon Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Because he used to work for her, and she says his tactics are unorthodox.
Yes. And then they cut to a scene of Beetlejuice eating a fly.
Yes.
Twice his size from underground. So we learn that, yes, he's probably probably pretty unorthodox.
Yeah.
In the previous scene, Beetlejuice's commercial ends in him saying, I'll do anything. I'll possess anybody. Come on down. I'll chew on a dog.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I did love...
Go ahead.
When they decide to start scaring them by putting on sheets and pretending to be ghosts, but and she's like, this is stupid. And he says, think of them as death shrouds. The moaning noises that they make had me like laughing so hard.
Oh my
gosh. Like they were so funny. Up. Especially Gina Davis's moaning noises were hilarious.
They were next level. I almost thought like, did they have someone else come in to do this? Because they were so displaced from her normal voice.
Yeah. True, because she's kind of got a deep voice, and her moans were very musical and trilling.
Yes, very soprano.
Yeah.
I love them in the sheets.
Yes.
And then Lydia comes out and takes a bunch of this is one unusual part of the movie to me, I will say, because Lydia comes out and she's like, oh my God, you guys are so weird. She thinks it's her parents, and she goes, you guys are so weird, stop playing these crazy games, because she thinks she's hearing them moan through the wall like having sex, and based on how Delia is, I mean, that could be what she would sound like.
Yes, true.
So she comes out with her camera, flashing all these pictures of her, like of them, like Polaroid, so they're popping out. And she's like, all right, guys, back in the room, stop being weirdos. What was she? She wanted to catch her parents naked?
I mean, I thought that was kind of weird too. I was like, if your parents are playing weird sex games, the last thing you need is photographic evidence of it.
Like, I would be like locking my door and covering my ears. I mean,
right.
She went out to
turning
get photo
on the
evidence
stereo
for what?
Yeah.
I mean, she is that unusual. But this is when she gets the proof that they are ghosts, because there's no feet in the pictures.
Yes. And she apparently said she read the handbook for the recently deceased, and she can see them because she sees the strange and unusual, because I myself am strange and unusual.
Yes. I love that.
Okay. The next thing that happens is the house is under construction, and you see like construction equipment, but this is just like these little details that I am so obsessed with. Like the construction equipment isn't like standard construction equipment. Like it has these two silly little claw-like arms that are digging in the dirt. And I just love that. I think those kinds of details, there's a lot of detail in this movie that adds to the weirdness and the whimsy that I think is so genius.
I agree. I love that. And I
I
feel
loved
like
that.
Delia, I don't know how much of her lines were ad-libbed and how much were written, but some of the things that she says just randomly in this movie that just passed me growing up, like when they're moving her art, she tells them, "This is my art and it is dangerous."
Yeah.
Or at one point when they're doing all this construction outside the scene, she runs outside and says to somebody, just randomly, "Tell me what you do so I can tell you how my husband could fire you."
Yes. Oh my God.
She's such a wacko. I can't get enough of her. I love how they're
Speaking
trying
of-
to get her art in the house, but for some
Yes.
reason they are like craning it into the air to a room it would never
Yes.
fit in.
Yes.
I also love that
It's
too.
perfect. So this is, I think, when Alec and Gina get desperate. By the way, sorry, I'm not using their real names, but it's just easier for me.
Barbara and
Alec and Gina.
Adam.
Oh yeah, they get desperate and they decide we're gonna summon Beetlejuice.
Yeah, because
So she
nothing's
says
working, and they're basically getting their house
Right.
torn apart.
Yes. So she says his name 3 times, and suddenly they end up in the little model city that he's in. And they have to dig him out of his grave, which, again, it's just the little things that I think are so genius. The fact that they're digging through rubber and cork and cardboard and the materials that you would use to build a little model like that are so perfect.
It was so perfect.
Yes. Okay, since Beetlejuice wasn't my favorite, do you want to talk about Beetlejuice appearing to them kind of for the first time?
Sure. So Beetlejuice pops out after they dig him out of the hole. And it's Michael Keaton, like you've never seen him before. I was trying to figure, most of the people who die in this movie, they look how they died for the most part. I mean, with the exception of the Maitlands, they're not wet the whole time, like I think everyone else would have been. But
Yeah.
Beetlejuice, I was like, what did he die from? But I read online that it's supposed to be from electrocution.
That sounds right.
Huh?
That sounds right.
Yeah, right? I mean, I guess I could see that from the hair and stuff. And I read that he had some influence over, like, his own costuming and his own lines and things like that, his own characterizations. So Beetlejuice is kind of like a total scam artist from the other side in his crazy, crazy black and white striped suit. And he tells them, he can help them. Clearly you don't know how to be scary, and I could be scary. And they're like, "Can you be scarier than us?" And he's like, "What do you think of this?" And you see from
Oh my
behind,
God.
he just like
Yes.
pulls, like his face.
Snakes out of his face or something?
Yeah, like all these snaky things come out. And they go back, but you never see it. I read online that there was a really elaborate effect that was made for that, but that we never got, and it didn't get used, so we never got to see it.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know, but I almost am glad we didn't, because it had its own effect, not knowing what it was going to look like. But they're like, okay, well, maybe we can use you. But he's being a total pig. He's like coming on to Gina Davis really hard. He's a total pig. He's
a sex pest.
Oh, totally. He's disgusting. He's like feral. He's feral.
Yes. I had forgotten that. And this is the point in the movie where I was like, wait a minute, they made this into a kid's cartoon because this guy's a total skis ball.
Yeah, he's like constantly trying to like look up her skirt or like goose her or whatever. So
yes.
She's like, home, home, home. She just tries it and it works. So they're transported back home and they're like, okay, we'll see if we're going to use Beetlejuice or not. That was like kind of a lot. And then we have the dinner scene.
My favorite.
Is this the dinner scene?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
so this is the dinner scene. And this is without Beetlejuice's help. They're like, we can do it ourselves. We'll just read the handbook and we'll do a good old fashioned haunting and we'll get them out.
I think this is the best scene in the whole movie. I'm obsessed with Catherine O'Hara starting singing Deo. And the choreography and then the prawns turning into hands that grab their faces and then push them away from the table.
So good. Everyone is possessed doing this calypso number to Deo, the work song. And I'm obsessed with everybody's styling in it, the outfits. I remembered every moment. Like that woman in the gold 80s look with the hair. Oh, now my dogs
shaking her ass when they're all like shaking their ass in the air.
Yes, and I love the way all of the actors reacted to it, like their facial expressions.
They did a really good job of going back and forth between like doing the performance piece of it and then like looking shocked at what they were doing.
Yes.
Like that had to be hard to kind of keep going back and forth between those two expressions while you're doing a choreographed dance.
100%. I also read that a different song was originally thought for this, but that Catherine O'Hara said it should be Calypso.
Oh, that's so funny.
Right?
Well, good on her because it's iconic.
Iconic. Even Catherine O'Hara's profile when she says Deo for the first time with that squiggle of hair.
Yes.
So dramatic. I could not
Perfection.
wait for it.
Yeah.
But this scene is supposed to like terrify everybody. Obviously that, they're expecting everyone to go running, screaming. They're waiting in the attic to see it. But instead, everyone is just delighted because they are so narcissistic and money driven and self-obsessed and want to be special. This group of people that they're like, bring them down. We want to see these ghosts that did all this. This is so fun.
Yeah, they're like thinking they have an attraction on their hands that they can make money out of.
Yeah. And we kind of learned that everyone thinks that Delia and Charles are sort of insufferable. And that now they're like, well, this was kind of worth the trip now.
Yes. But they don't want to come down, so their guests leave thinking like, I don't know, maybe it was all fake somehow or that they're, having them on or something. But I think this is when Beetlejuice kind of attacks.
Well, this is when Otho goes they go in the attic to see where these, where the ghosts are. Nobody's there. Otho finds the handbook for the recently deceased and sneaks it away because they leave it out everywhere. And then this is when, they've had enough. Their thing didn't work, so they call upon Beetlejuice to help them. And I love this scene too.
Yeah.
He becomes a big snake monster that is like the banister of the hallway.
Yes.
And his face is so creepy. His claymation sort of like facial head on that snake is so freaking creepy.
It's great. Yeah.
And he scares everybody out and is like more violent with them, like knocks Otho down the steps and throws people over railings and things like that. And now Lydia's really upset with them because she's like, why are you doing this? This is actually really horrifying.
Yeah. And it's kind of at this time that Alec and Gina disappear. And so she thinks that her family has kind of made them unwelcome, which makes Lydia sad because she really liked Alec and Gina and wanted them to stick around.
Yeah, she finally found someone to talk to.
Yeah. So the next scene is her in her bedroom wearing a net veil, writing about how alone she is, and is essentially writing a suicide note about how she's going to throw herself in the river.
Yes. If you find this, I've hurled myself into the river.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Alec and Gina are actually just in the underworld getting tips from Juno on how to scare the Dietzes. And so they turn their faces into these. This is where like practical effects, I think, are so much cooler than CGI effects. Like the fact that they did that all with like cool prosthetics and claymation type stuff is so cool to me.
Their faces in this scene, to me, are the most iconic part of this whole movie.
Agreed.
I know I've said I was obsessed with a lot of things. I was legitimately obsessed with these looks that they made when they pull, because Juno's like, what are you going to do to scare them for real this time? And they I'll describe it for those who haven't seen it. Alec Baldwin sticks his hand through the back of his head, so you have a print of his hand coming out of the back of his head, and pulls his face out like long, and then has his eyes all over his fingers, 10 eyes on his fingers. And then Gina Davis does a similar thing with her mouth, really big, with her eyes. I love when she flips her eyes into her head and they come out of her mouth.
Yes.
With all of that hair. This look of the two of them in their regular outfits, her sister wives outfit with that head, and him with those cakes.
Amazing.
This is a Halloween costume I want to do with Davey. So
I was just thinking those would be such good Halloween costumes if you could make those masks.
It'd just be so hot all the whole time. It would have to be like, that's a commitment.
Yeah.
But, oh my god, that is my favorite part. The practical effects of this, like you said, there's nothing that beats the way they look right here.
No.
So good.
Meanwhile, Lydia meets Beetlejuice in the attic, and he introduces himself as the ghost with the most, which is a phrase that I definitely remember hearing all the time in the cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
And she's about to say Beetlejuice for the third time after a game of charades when she realizes that he was the snake and refuses to say it again, which is like, obviously, girl, that's the same face that was on the snake that attacked you. What do you mean? Wait a minute, you're the snake.
Yeah.
But anyway, she misses Alec and Gina, and she wants to be reunited with them because, quote, she wants to be dead too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is when
they burst in.
The business partner.
Huh?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. This is when they burst in with their faces all crazy and scare her.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I wanted to be with you. I was going to go to Beetlejuice." And they tell her, like, "Don't say that word. Don't say his name. Like, he's not helpful, and being dead isn't any easier than being alive."
Yeah.
And then as they're talking about this or whatever, Otho, or like the whole group, basically bursts in. I think it's Otho and Delia and Charles, and they're taking the model and they're taking it to another room.
Yes, because they've got a plan concocted.
Yes, and we know he has that book, so we're like, okay, what's this going to be? And, it's Otho. He seems kind of like a hack, but Otho brings them into the other room, and we see that he's got sort of like a seance kind of situation going on.
Yes.
He's had them get things that belong to the Maitlands, which is their wedding outfits, in the attic. And he has them laid out on the table, and he's performing this thing that he's learned from this book. And
yes.
They're like, everyone's kind of like, oh, let's see what happens. It's Otho or whatever. But it really works. And he starts to do the ceremony. And we see in the attic, we see Barbara disappear, and then she starts to fill out. I love the way they did this too. Another effect I really loved. The way the outfits on the table are laying flat, and then they just fill out into their bodies and float into the air.
Yeah, it's great. And it's I would say the most eerie scene because they're in their wedding dress and tuxedo, and then they start to decay basically.
Yes.
And Lydia's really upset by this.
Yeah, another effect that was really good. I read that it was clay faces or something that they made, and it took a really long time.
Oh.
But
I bet
so effective, the way they age. I mean, you could see the camera effects pretty clearly now, but
oh, for sure.
It's still really jarring and sad in seeing them, and then
it is really sad. Yeah,
and Delia and Lydia's like, you're hurting them, and you could tell they kind of seem to regret what they're doing at this point because they don't know what they're fucking doing.
No,
but they could tell that it's they see them as people for the first time. Because they could actually see them really, and then they see them basically dying, so they're like, "Oh crap!" And Lydia realizes her only chance is maybe to employ Beetlejuice to help.
Which, in order to get his help, she has to agree to marry him. Which this again was another point in the movie where I was like, "How did this become a child's cartoon?" Because you have a child marrying a dead pervert.
Yes, the age difference is probably 300 years.
Yes, and even if he wasn't dead, he's still an adult who is marrying a child, which is very creepy.
Very creepy.
But she
this
releases
scene is
him.
also very iconic for me too.
Oh, for sure. Because he says it's showtime.
Oh yes. Yeah, she agrees. She says his name. I'll do it, and he says it's showtime, and then it's like a total carnival.
Yes,
off the wall carnival. He turns into a big tent. He has big hammers that he shoots people through the ceiling with, those strength tests.
Yes.
All of this was so iconic to me, including once he gets everyone out of the room that he needs out of the room to perform a ceremony. Lydia is suddenly in this red, iconic wedding dress look.
Amazing.
I couldn't get enough of it. And
that's a Halloween costume right there.
Oh, right? The two of them in their wedding outfits. I would totally do that.
That's what they should have done in Mean Girls. She should have come as Lydia.
Oh, that's so perfect. Honestly.
Anyway.
Or at least do Corpse Bride or something. Anyway.
Something, yeah.
So he, the reason he wants to marry her is because he'll get his freedom if he marries her. So there's this dark, evil guy priest. Demon
who
priest
kind
that
of looks like an alien. Yeah.
I love him too. Totally random, and then they're in their outfits to do the ceremony, and I love that she's not going to do her vows. Beetlejuice puts his hand over her mouth and he mimics her. She says something like, I love Beetlejuice. This is the man I want to be. He's the man for me. Yes. How I love this man of mine.
Yes. Great. And I love I love the statues like coming to life and holding Catherine O'Hara and the husband in place.
The statues coming to life. So iconic as well.
Amazing. He banishes Alec and Gina or at least Gina, to the sandworm realm.
Oh, is this before or after the thing on her mouth?
Sorry, that's after. So before, she starts to say Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. But he like first puts a zipper on her mouth. She unzips it, says Beetlejuice a second time. And then before she could say it a third time, he like puts a welded metal plate on her face so that she can't peel it off. And then sends her to the sandworm realm.
I just love those moments. She's like, Beetlejuice, and then the zipper. When she unzips her mouth and says Beetlejuice again, that's like the best.
The best.
Beetlejuice.
I had no memory of how this scene resolved itself. So I was kind of blown away when Gina Davis comes crashing through the ceiling riding a sandworm that eats Beetlejuice.
Yes.
I did not remember that at all.
I couldn't remember how it resolved itself. I knew a sandworm came through. I knew a sandworm ended the movie, but I did not remember Gina Davis riding it.
Yeah.
Which we don't know how she ever does, really, but we did see her punch a sandworm in the face in the previous scene.
That's true. Yeah, she does. And then the movie kind of wraps up with the Dietzes and Alec and Gina all sort of living together, but it seems almost like Gina and Alec are Lydia's sort of like found family who help her study for tests, and like she's doing well in school, and as a reward for getting an A on her math test, she's like, do it, and so we get the kind of iconic ending scene where they levitate her in the air and dance to Harry Belafonte again. And Delia is back to sculpting, and the dad seems happy because he's still in the house that he loved.
Bird watching.
But I think it's a great ending to the movie. Again, I'm gonna have one criticism that you're gonna hate. Winona Ryder is one of the worst dancers I've ever seen in my life.
Do you think she's supposed to be a Dancing with the Stars dancer in this scene?
I just think she should have had at least some rhythm or some pizzazz. It was so lifeless to me.
And she's floating in the air, possessed, dancing, shimmying left and right. She's literally in one spot on a cable being turned left and right. What is she supposed to do? She's a teenager, and they probably did not have even the song picked out yet.
Maybe. But she was lip syncing to it. I don't know. I feel like
did
maybe they should have put her in like
thing with the hands in the air.
I know. I feel like they should have just given her like one day of dance instructor. I feel like there was no dance instructor.
She's goth. She's not a dancer. This isn't Wednesday. You forgot the last scene.
Oh my God. The Wednesday. What?
Beetlejuice is in the waiting room now.
Oh yes, of course.
I love this part. Beetlejuice is in the waiting room because he's back in the mix of being dead. He's caught. He's not living in the attic anymore. And he's sitting next to the guy with the shrunken head on one side, and on the other side he's sitting next to the guy who shrunk his head. And he's got his number is like 9 million.
Yes.
The person next to him's number is 4. And he gets him to look aside, and he switches their number. But I just love that he like grabs the tiny number from his hand and then just tosses his long ass number on his lap.
Yes, that is good.
And then the guy,
and then he gets his head shrunken.
Yeah.
Great. Beautiful. What did this get on IMDb?
Let's see. IMDb, this got a 7.5.
Okay. And Rotten Tomatoes?
Rotten Tomatoes, we have a 77% tomato meter, and the audience/popcorn meter is 82%, so it's higher there.
Okay. Those are lower than I would have expected, frankly.
I agree. Probably because there's just so much more to aggregate from, because it's been reviewed probably a million times over the years.
Yeah.
Even afterwards. Let's see. Some trivia. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Some trivia I've read about the movie, other than what we've already shared. My favorite piece of trivia about this movie. Beetlejuice is in the movie for less than 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh. That makes sense. Yeah.
It's called Beetlejuice. He's in the movie for 14 and a half minutes total, full on. And he's only in the outfit that he iconically wears as Beetlejuice for 2 minutes. Isn't that crazy?
Oh yeah, that's true. That is funny. Huh.
Like, that's how you iconically remember him. But it's 2 minutes of airtime. and just a lot of marketing material, and of course the cartoon.
Weird. Yeah.
Also, let's see. Oh, how fun. So the snake scene for Beetlejuice, where he's the snake, was filmed before Michael Keaton was cast, and the original snake had no resemblance to him, and they decided to reshoot it and use the stop motion snake instead to make it look like Beetlejuice, rather than it being some kind of random monster from the afterlife, which was the original idea. Let's see. Oh my god, how funny. The Barbara and Adam Maitland, or, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, their bumper sticker on their car when they get into the accident says, "I brake for animals." And that's literally what killed them.
I love that.
Oh my gosh. I just love little details like that. I love things that maybe no one will see. Maybe one person will see, but they know it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think that's so fun.
What would you rate this movie?
I guess that's kind of the most of it.
Did you hear me?
What'd you say?
Oh, I said, what would you rate this movie?
Oh, wow. I love this movie. Gosh, I don't know what I rated other things, but I'm going to go clean and say 9 point... I don't really have a lot of notes. I'm going to give it like a really high rating. I'm going to go crazy. 9.7.
That is definitely your highest rating so far. You gave a 9 to the original Karate Kid and a 9.2 to the original Beauty and the Beast.
I mean, I can't think of much I would change. Very few things would I change. So I'm going to give it a 9.7. What about you?
I'm going to do 8.5, which is one of my higher ratings. I think the original Mean Girls, I gave an 8.5, and the original Beauty and the Beast, I gave a 9. So obviously this is a beauty for both of us.
Yes.
I think the only thing I would change is the like child bride part of it. It feels a little bit like, oh, I don't love that. But I feel like everything else, it's still, just because of the whimsical nature, it ages well. Like it's meant to be campy and ridiculous, and so it still works in that aspect, I feel like.
I agree. I would change very little about it. I think the child bride thing could be done away with as long as they keep a similar scene to that Val scene where he does her own voice, because that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think Beetlejuice could be a little less perverted, because him being a pig and being gross could be done without him being like actually sexually disgusting. Like him having the board, having like the strip club is enough. That's fine. You don't need to have him like trying to like, look up her skirt constantly.
Agreed.
But other than that, I have no notes. I love the graphics. I love the music. Is this that guy who does all those music? That guy who does.
Oh, Danny Elfman?
Yes.
Yes, it's Danny Elfman.
So good. It's just iconic. And I can't get enough of it. I would say what was I gonna say? I wish there was a way that the musical was out somewhere to like watch it so we could review it for the podcast, because we obviously can't. But the musical, if anyone out there likes musicals, the soundtrack to this musical, it's on anything you can, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. It's so good. It is so good. And the way they do the storyline, it's kind of like cool. It's like all the same characters, really, just kind of like reimagined. And you just have to see it. And the songs from it that really stand out, I would say, are Dead Mom, my favorite song from the whole thing. If I Knew Then What I Know Now, which is sung by the receptionist, Miss Venezuela. And Delia's big song from it, which is, I think it's called Everything Happens for a Reason.
Okay.
Delia in the musical plays like a new wave, life coachy, crystals, zen, spiritual, think positive kind of gal.
Okay.
So good. Anyway, I highly recommend anyone to check out the musical, but that'll hold you over since we're going to be off next week. So while you're waiting for us to get back, download the soundtrack, go see Beetlejuice in the theater, which we'll be doing.
Yes, this will be the first time we're going to watch a movie in the theater to review. So it'll be an interesting novel experience for us.
Yes, I've already looked up some tips of how to take notes in the movie theater without being a disturbance, and I think it'll be pretty easy.
Love it.
I'm excited.
Great. Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it. And then the week after, we're gonna do a couple episodes of the Beetlejuice cartoon, because that was like such a figure in my childhood. So I'm very curious to see how that is revisited.
100%. When N messaged me and was like, "Hey, should we do the Beetlejuice cartoon?" I was like, "Should we do the Beetlejuice cartoon?" Yes.
Well, listeners, thank you for checking out this episode. And if you would like to help us grow, the very best thing that you could do is to rate and review our podcast on whatever platform you're using to listen to this episode.
Also, another great thing to do is to tell people, because our podcast will really get out there most by word of mouth. So post about us on Reddit or whatever message board you're a part of. Tell your friends, tell the mail person, do it all.
That's right. Open that mouth as wide as Gina Davis and Beetlejuice and never stop yapping about how great this podcast is. Our social media is RebootyPod on Instagram and Twitter, and you can also email us at rebootypod@gmail.com. We love getting emails, so send us a note and say hi.
And we also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/NandMatt. We have a lot of bonus episodes. We've done tons of movie reviews for things that maybe don't have reboots. So check it out over there. I'm sure you'll love it.
That's right. And if you want to support us in a smaller way, you heard Matt talk about how much he loves pumpkin spice everything. So if you want, you can always buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/NandMatt.
Unapologetic. Thank you so much for listening to Rebooty and the Beast.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Bye.